Hey everybody, Backpack Hack here, coming at you with another trail tip, and I apologize for the harsh lighting in this video, but even though I'm surrounded by trees, I'm still out in the sunshine because it's fall, the leaves are gone, we've lost the canopy, the wind is blowing, leaves are going to be falling down, and also there's a firing range a few miles away, and you might hear some shots go off. So let's go ahead and get started on this video anyway, right? You take the outdoors when and where you can get it, right? Remember when you got your tent and you set it up for the first time, that visceral feeling that you got when your poles literally assembled themselves with that brand new shock cord that was in them? Well, that was then. This is now. That's right. You've had your tent or used it long enough that it no longer has any elasticity in those cords and you've lost that snap. So what do? Do you buy a whole new tent? Do you try to get a hold of the manufacturer to see if you can buy replacement poles? No. You replace the shock cord. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do in this video. So let's get started. Let's go over some of the tools that I use to do this. I have a micrometer, but if you don't have one, it's not critical. But if you have one or have access to one, it makes it a little easier. To measure, you need a ruler of some sort, both the length and diameter. I use this to measure the diameter, but you can, in a pinch, use a standard ruler. You will also need a way to mark the different pole sections, because once you take it apart, you need to put it back exactly the same way it came apart. I use a pair of surgical clamps, but you can use vice grips, or if you have a willing helper to help you with this project, you certainly can. I use 2 pair of needle nose. If you only have one, that's fine, you can get by, but if you have 2, all the better. And then you will need a pair of scissors to cut the cord with. So with everything assembled, let's go ahead and get started. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the ends of each pole section. This isn't a big deal because this is a single pole, one end to the other. There's 9 sections and the center 7 pieces are all identical, and the 2 ends will make themselves obvious. However, when you get into a complicated pole like this, and this is the pole off my Big Agnes, I've got a shock cord that runs through here, and then another shock cord running from there, underneath this fitting right here, over to here, and then I've got another shock cord running from here end to end. The problem is these may not all be the same length, and of course I want to make sure that this fitting, which holds the top of the tent and the pole that sits crossways, to go right back here. I don't want to accidentally put it over here or put it over here, or take this piece, which is a different length, and interchange it with, say, this piece here. I don't want to do that because then my tent will not pitch correctly. So it's very important that you label everything before you get started. So let me get rid of this and we'll get going. I'm simply going to take a little piece of tape and put an E here for the end, and then I will simply label each one of these as a 1 and on down the line. Once I have everything marked, it's time to go ahead and start disassembling our poles. What you need to do is unscrew the end and you will find a knot. Now there's not a whole lot of room to work with here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out some excess and use my clamp to clamp that off to give me enough slack to work with. And I'm going to fold this over so it doesn't fall off the end of the table. But now I've got enough room to undo this knot and disassemble the pole. And this is why I like to use 2 pair of needle noses, because I can really get a good grip on them right down in there where the knot is and make it come apart real easy. You can do this without 2 pair of needle nose, but it can be done. It's just a little bit more difficult. Don't lose this piece. You definitely do not want to lose this, because, well, without this your tent won't get pitched. So make sure you put that in a safe place. Now I can go ahead and undo my clamp and remove the old shock cord. Now I've got all my pole sections disassembled, and it's time to go find some shock cord. Now, you can do a couple of things with shock cord. One is you can order it online and order it by the foot. You might find a store that has it available, but you might have to buy like 50 foot of it, or 100 foot of it, or 25 foot. It just depends on the store. Very few stores actually have a full roll that they're willing to cut to length. So it's best to, in my eyes, simply order a roll and have it available, and that way you can effect a repair anytime. So once you get all your poles disassembled, it's time to measure the cord. Now when you measure the cord, obviously you don't want to stretch it out because you'll end up ordering too much. Here a tape measure would probably work a little bit better, but you can measure it out like this. One thing you don't want to do when you're disassembling the poles is to simply cut the cord while it's still attached to these ends, because then you can't really get a good accurate measurement. And one of the reasons I have a micrometer is so I can actually measure the diameter of the cord. And this one's 1/8 of an inch. You can also measure it this way on a standard ruler and get a fairly good idea. Or you could just take it to a store that does have it available, either in store or available to order a custom cut. But either way, you'll need to know what size. 1/8 inch is very, very common, but there are other sizes, so you need to make sure that you order the right size. If you get a size too small, it won't last as long. If you get a size too big, it won't fit into your poles. So make sure that you measure the diameter and the length accurately, especially if you are going to order it by the foot. Now, I'm a firm believer of just buying, in my case, a 500-foot spool. For the price of a meal for 2 people, that is going to give you basically a lifetime supply. If you're just a very casual camper, in other words, you take your tent out once a year or so, you may find it better and more economical to simply order it by the foot. Very few stores are going to have this in stock in the store and will be able to cut it. And most of the time they will want the total length. They will not cut 3 or 4 or 5 pieces for you. They will cut the total length and that's it. So once you get either a spool or your replacement cord online that gets shipped to you, you just measure it out. And once you get to the end of one, you take a pair of scissors and cut it. And then you can get rid of this old cord that doesn't stretch anymore. And it's time to start putting it together. The first thing I'm going to do is find one of my ends. I'm going to thread this through. And now I'm going to thread it through one of the fittings. I'm going to have to cut that a little bit to get rid of the frays so it will fit in there. And then finish it off with a simple overhand knot. And give that a good tug because you don't want it to let go. Pull this back in here and make sure that everything is up in there snug inside of the end of the pole. Thread this back in here. And now we're ready to start putting it all back together. I'm going to spin this around because it'll be a little bit easier. But that was pole number 1. I want to put pole number 1 against that. There's my number 1. And I'm going to simply continue to do this until I get it completely put back together. Now I need number 2. There's number 2. And now we're going to start running into a problem. I'm already stretching this out, and I still got 3 more sections to go. So what do? Simple. I pull extra cordage out and clamp it off. That was number 6. I need to find number 6. And again, I'm running short, so I'm going to undo my clamp. There's number 6. And number 7. Actually, the 8th one in the run. And now I need to repeat my process with my clamp. Pull enough that I can get through this, and you can see that I have plenty over here. Clamp it, and now I'm going to put on the last piece. And with my clamp, I have more than enough to work with. I'm going to cut that frayed on. I'm going to cut that frayed end off so I can push this through a lot easier. Give myself a little bit more room to work with here. Spin this around, put a simple overhand knot in it. Make sure that's good and tight. Release the pressure. Feed the loose end of the tube or the pole. Work my knot in and spin it together. And now we have a nice, brand new, snappy little pole. And as you can see, all I need to do now is pull off my labels, and I've got brand new shock cords in my poles. So with some basic tools and a little bit of time, you too can do this. So this is Backpack Hat coming at you with this trail tip. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment on my videos. Be safe out there, and I'll see you out on the trail.